Hello everyone and welcome. This video is going to be about Microsoft Flight Simulator's weather system and my thoughts on it overall, the good, the bad, and maybe the ugly. There's a lot of good, as we all know. This weather system is one of the reasons the title has been critically acclaimed. It sets a quantum leap, I might add, because compared to the weather system depiction that we had in FSX and prepared after that, and even Explain 11, Microsoft Flight Simulator really set the standard for what atmospheric volumetric rendering can do. So as you can see, we do see the effects of that kind of volumetric atmospherics when it comes to rendering the scene so well. It gets a kind of depth to the scene. So if you guys already didn't realize, we're not in the sunniest and cleanest of places. We have a little bit of pollution going around over here, and the reason why is because we are in a big Indian city. So we are spawned at Kolkata International Airport, which is in eastern India. Um, it is known to be quite polluted, much like a lot of major Indian cities, but it can get really, really bad in places like Kolkata and New Delhi. So today the weather is actually good when compared to certain winter days, especially, and spring days. We have visibility of 4.5 kilometers, which is about 2.5 miles, which is usually really good for Indian standards in cities, especially. Um, and the sim does an absolutely beautiful job of depicting this visibility reduction. So back in 2020, when the sim was new, we did not have this. So despite the METAR data showing 3 or 2 kilometers visibility, we used to have 120 plus kilometers visibility. You could just see for miles on end, as if there was no you know barrier inside, no smog, no haze effect, nothing. So incorporating METAR effects in Sim Update 7 had a positive effect of making the visibility simulation much better around cities and airport areas. This of course came with a downside, which is what I'm going to be expanding upon. For that, I need to go to something called the developer camera here in the sim. So let me just show you what I mean. So this is something that a lot of you might have already noticed, I suspect. So um, this visibility is interpolated from METAR data, and where there's no METAR data, there's no visibility data. So the sim kind of defaults to the original 2020 variation, 2020 version of the visibility simulation outside of the city limits, for example. And if you see here, we have 120 kilometers visibility plus, unlimited pretty much, but then over here, we have reduced visibility. So now you might say, okay, this is not unexpected. Outside cities, you have less pollution. But then is it as dramatic as you see over here, guys? So over here, this is what you would expect when you have less pollution, right? When you have very less pollution, you'll have visibility that approximates something like this in India. So those who lived in India can vouch for this. It never is like a clear day in Big Sky, Montana. It never is like that, especially in tropical regions like India. So if you see here, there's an abrupt ending over here, which is the METAR circle, and the data just stops there. Now, if you have another weather station nearby, you're gonna get the specific METAR circle over there, right? So that is probably the only thing that works right now. So one thing that I suspect can be done is that we can spatially interpolate these stations. Let's say you have Kolkata and a few more airports that you have information for, which are about like 100 miles or so apart. It's a decent distance, and let's say that METAR circle extends about 40 miles. So you have another 50 miles to cover. So it's still, I mean, from the grand scheme of things, it's still a very short distance from the world scale. So it's going to be an easy interpolation with reasonably high confidence. You can interpolate between these 2 points if you select something appropriate to interpolate with, right? So by that I mean a really good interpolation spline for visibility. Now, if your stations are about 200 meters away or 200 miles away, or 300 miles away, um, this is a very different problem, right? So the distance scale has suddenly increased just because two stations 200 miles away show a visibility of 1 kilometer or 3 kilometers. It doesn't imply that everywhere in between should have a maximum visibility of 4 kilometers, right? Or 5 kilometers, right? Um, we need to find a way to source data for that. I think if we can get proper meteorological data to extract accurate values, that'll be great. If not, we had to make reasonable assumptions, I guess, and I don't know what those might be. If you have ideas on this, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. So uh, how the question essentially boils down to what would be the basis of choosing your interpolation spline between these two stations that are hundreds of miles away, an order of 200 miles away, maybe less than 500 but greater than 100, so that's a difficult problem. So let me know what you guys think about that. So the next thing on the list that I have over here is cloud depiction. So this again gets to METAR interpolation. The kind of variety that we see in cloud is not as high as one might hope. So for instance, you have a lot of cumulus formations and cumulonimbus formations too in isolation, but it is very hard to see stratus or cirrus formations in high altitude. Especially in high altitude, it's quite egregious because you have really low poly kind of clouds which are very transparent almost, as you can see up here. I can see a lot of these clouds even during flight. So these kinds of low poly, high altitude clouds are really not the best kind of depiction for cirrus clouds. Um, the other thing that I want to discuss is with respect to the weather and how it works inside the simulator. So it's kind of weird how it works. So let me see. I'm kind of lost here in the developer camera. Let me just find an easier way to navigate. Again, your visibility works well when you're unable to find an airport after a while. So that is full credit to the Asobo team for implementing this. So let me go to clear skies. And now you know what the sim used to look like in 2020 in India when there was no clouds. You used to have this while the METAR was saying 3 kilometers. So now we're back at the Kolkata airport. Here in this airfield, now we're back to the live weather. METAR says that we have about 4.5 kilometers visibility. So we're going to see what can be done for that. This can also help you guys if you want to know how to set these visibility, quote unquote, visibility settings yourself. This is something that I do these days because I just cannot bear to see those METAR circles with visibility anymore. And I'm really sad that Asobo has not made an update for this yet. So what I do for this is essentially get this as close to zero as possible, maybe 10 feet. Even zero works, to be honest. And let me just, for starting from scratch, let me reduce the density to zero on all these layers. So that'll actually help demonstrate the problem. So here, what you need to do is you need to increase the cloud coverage to 100% and then increase the density to control your visibility. So you see that? This is the lowest possible visibility you can get for just one layer of cloud. So this is kind of like fog up to 2,000 feet. And this reduces the horizontal visibility to anywhere between, I'd say, 1,000 feet, right? We can barely see those 1,000-foot markers. So 1,000 feet visibility. Now, if you want to reduce it even further, that's when I think the bugs of the sim actually get useful. Or you can even, like, yeah, I don't think I think you got to use multiple layers one on top of another to get this done. So if you want to simulate true zero visibility condition, let's see if that works. Not really though. I don't think it works. What might work is extending it negative below zero. So that definitely works. So let me just clear this to 0, 0. And let's see if I can reduce this. Yeah, reducing this to 1640 feet gives you that nearly zero visibility condition. So this is quite close to zero visibility. We can barely see like 200 feet or so in front of us. Okay, so coming back to the baseline condition where you have a little bit of haze. Um, Let me just get this to 2000 feet. Yeah, so this is what this looks like. You know, this is the maximalist kind of condition that you have. And if I reduce this to about 0.01, you start seeing that light haze form in the distance, right? And then it starts closing in a little bit. So 10 times that value, you have this much. So this is how you play with visibilities. This is all well and good, you know, we can use this, but then where's the limitation here? Where's the issue? The weird thing is that these layers are not really independent of each other when it comes to density. Or pretty much even scatter, I guess, if the layers are close enough. But even when it comes to density, the effect is really, really strong. Now let's see that I have a thin cloud layer at 7,500 feet bottom and extending up to 10,000 feet. So this is, even let's just keep it at 9,000 feet. This is a very thin cloud layer. Now I'm going to keep it about like 30%. These numbers don't match too. I don't know if that's a bug, but yeah, those numbers don't match. Let me just increase. So notice how I'm playing with the cloud layer up top over here. Notice how the layer below that gets affected so significantly. That's weird, right? So why do I see an effect on the cloud density on the base layer when I am working with the layer above it? Especially such a strong relationship, right? So that is, I mean, if this isn't a bug, I think it should be tracked as a bug, because this is not something that we expect, especially if we want to simulate independent cloud layers with varying thicknesses. Um, because it is possible that you can have this kind of hazy condition while at the same time having really dense clouds. You know, that's something that Asobo really needs to work on. Now, why is this going to be important? Because at really low cloud densities, you can barely see the cloud. Now, this kind of gives you an idea for why the cloud depiction in live weather is always translucent too, right? It the densities are both connected, and to make sure that the visibility matches up with the cloud density, we need to reduce the cloud density so that the visibility layer doesn't get screwed up. So that's what I guess is happening. Um, to verify this, you can actually see the debug weather tool here as well. Let me show that. Um, well, I lost the airport again. Okay. Okay, I think I'm truly lost. Yeah, that looks like a river. That looks like a cricket stadium. Yep. This looks like a city. Yeah. Uh, there it is. Yeah, there's the airport. So, um, let me show you the debug, weather debug window. So this window has information, a lot of information, of course, but we're only going to focus on the clouds. So here right now, the cloud density shows as 0. Just keep an eye on this number. Now if I switch to live weather, it goes to 0.006. Okay, so what value of cloud density translates to 0.006? It's not, even that is not the same. It's not consistently implemented. So let me replicate this again. Let me go to 0. No. 0 feet. Let me get this up to 1500. And 0 and 0. And cloud density full. So Density of zero point 0.1 corresponds to a cloud density of 0.002. Now, to get it to 0.006, you can either increase the density here, right? So it's approximately 0.006. So you get a similar kind of depiction of visibility as we had before. You can see the entire runway, but not really too much beyond that, right? Or you can keep this kind of low, and then you can have this as your threshold, and then say broken clouds at like 3,000 feet, and there you go. So you have this kind of cloud layer, which is, I mean, I wouldn't say it's exactly the same because like the amount of clouds is different, but now you're getting somewhat close to what the METAR uh, cloud depiction showed, right? So you have about 0.006 on the cloud density, and you have the similar kind of clouds, but then here you don't have as much, the first layer. Um, this is really, really weird. I don't think this is how things should work, because then there's no way you're getting super thick broken clouds, you know. And it's also going to be really weird for, let's say you want to fly through a thin layer of clouds. I mean, sorry, a small layer of clouds with respect to altitude, but then do you see how translucent they are? But if I want to have these really nice clouds to fly through so that you actually feel like you're flying through clouds, you lose your visibility layer completely. It becomes really foggy instead of a haze. So I think this is both a rendering issue and a depiction issue. Now, what about another cloud rendering issue? So a cloud rendering issue that we all know really well is the Perlin noise kind of effect that you see in these clouds if you increase the density. So the clouds look great at a density below 1.0, but then as you cross 1 and above 2, this starts to become really obvious, especially during certain times of day when it depends on the angle of the sun, I guess. Like when the sun shines on the cloud at a certain angle, this just gets exacerbated. So that is essentially the issue that we're dealing with here. Um, so these are some of the issues that I've noticed, and some of them have also been reported in the forums. Um, I'd like to hope that these issues do get addressed before Flight Sim 2024 released, because weather is obviously a really key part of a flight sim, and forcing people to go one level up just to get the basics of the weather simulation, it seems kind of weird. I understand that you cannot ramp up the density of clouds to no end with infinite complexity and like lots of shapes, so that's reasonable for a bigger upgrade. But I think a lot of the other stuff like visibility and these coupling of density layers and all that can be fixed. And finally, to help the users a little bit, I think the in-sim weather settings are severely lacking. Um, for one, you have bugs like I've demonstrated with the coverage and the density. We also cannot set up like fractions of density below 0.01. I think that's a rendering thing, but that's fine because the numbers don't make sense at all anyways, right? So the numbers don't make sense. So I think we need to we need to get Asobo to really give us a better depiction on this, and it'll really, really improve the sim even better than it is right now. And it's already really good, but it can only get better, right? And the other thing with the menu is that the humidity value doesn't make sense at all. Changing the humidity here just gives you like a really weird rendering artifact, especially when it comes to daytime. Like uh, it gets better with NVIDIA filters, but even then it looks kind of weird inside the airplane. So I mean, it's a minor issue compared to the other stuff that I've pointed out, but it's still something. Um, so I'd say that this is one issue, and we are unable to set a dew point. Temperature and dew point really don't figure over here, so selecting those values to make sure that more clouds form, all of that is out of the window, right? So we always have an ambient humidity of 60%. So that is really strange. Um, Correct. I mean, I'd like to be. I mean, I'm not sure if there is an option to change humidity or dew point. So if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. But I guess that's about it on my thoughts for the flight sim weather system. Finally, if you want to see a video demonstration of how good cloud surfing can actually be with really dense clouds in the flight sim, if it's properly implemented, check out the link below my video. And if you enjoyed this video, definitely drop a like. And I'm looking forward to hearing your comments as well. Uh, and if you know other folks who are into flight sim, please share this video with them so that a lot more people talk about this, because we're getting a lot of sim updates with minor fixes, which is great. But then we also have a lot of world updates with just a lot of toys, eye candy like city models and things like that. Um, when the weather system, which is so integral to the flight sim experience, needs to be prioritized a little bit more, in my opinion. Um, Besides that, if any Asobo developer sees this, please let us know your thoughts on this. And if you'd like uh, help from folks who worked on computational simulations, uh, you should take the help from folks who have a background in the subject. So I'm really interested to see how this thing develops. Thank you so much.